Hi everyone, I'm Andy.
And I'm Sandra.
Welcome to our second session in our four-part series of addressing what makes us more vulnerable to illnesses. Last time we looked at what we eat and discussed how to optimize the foods we choose in our diet to help us achieve optimal wellness. Today we're going to look at sleep. And through decades of studying it, researchers claim that getting sufficient rest is a critical piece of the long life puzzle and in playing a pivotal role in people getting ill. First, let's have some fun with numbers. How about 225,000? Well, that's the number of hours that the average person sleeps in their lifetime. That's 250,000 hours, and in essence, it works out that we all spend approximately 1/3 of our lives sleeping. This means we spend more than 25 years of our lives sleeping. So how about 70 million? Well, that's the approximate number of Americans that suffer from sleep disorders. These disorders include insomnia, sleep apnea, restless leg syndrome, and narcolepsy. And for one last number, how about 41 billion with a B? That's a pretty large number, and that's the dollar amount that Americans spend on sleeping aids. And the irony and misfortune of that is that it is estimated that 30% of people are sleep deprived and receive inadequate sleep on an ongoing basis, despite their best efforts to have sound sleep.
Those are some fairly astounding numbers, Andy, and especially to know that many people continue to suffer from sleep deprivation throughout their lives. And to think about it in this context of does it really matter if we don't get a good night's rest? So let's look at this a little bit more closely. So the question is, does it really matter if we do not get a good night of rest? And should that happen occasionally? The answer is no, not really. But even with one night of uninterrupted sleep, in addition to having low energy the following day, research has shown a few of the impacts that you may also experience greater sensitivity to pain, have impaired concentration and memory function, may have the desire to eat impulsively, possibly have increased irritability and decreased eye-hand coordination. In fact, the CDC claimed that staying awake for at least 24 hours is similar to having a blood alcohol level of 0.1. And in the United States, it's illegal to drive with a blood alcohol level of 0.08, which means that this lack of sleep translates into the equivalency of being too drunk to legally drive. So it really shows the level of impairment that can result from not sleeping.
That's
And let's
amazing.
extend, absolutely, and let's extend this out a little bit, because an ongoing lack of sleep, so not just 1 or 2 nights, but chronic sleep deprivation where sleeping difficulties extend over longer periods of time, is closely associated with the development of serious diseases and premature death. These
Wow.
conditions include high blood pressure, heart attacks and stroke, obesity, diabetes, depression, lower fertility rates, and an overall weakened immune system. And with a weakened immune system, it means your body is less able to fight off infections and viruses. And it has a more difficult time to deal with illnesses and injuries. And this can become a very, very large problem. Interestingly, a recent study showed that sleep deprivation in mice caused death faster than starvation. And
Wow,
it's
really?
absolutely, and it's been cited that while sleep won't cure cancer, some state that it may improve the odds of recovery. So overall, we need to acknowledge its power, the power of sleep.
Well, that certainly seems like a very strong argument to have more sleep, right? Some interesting studies have raised some alarming findings when they looked at sleep in the context of people who work night shifts or even rotating shifts. Researchers concluded that women working night shifts had a 19% increased risk of developing cancer compared with women who did not work at night. And while this in itself is alarming, it was found that it was even more harmful to have rotating shifts rather than always working late night shifts. In these cases, those on rotating shifts for more than 5 years were up to 11% more likely to die early compared to those who never worked those shifts. In fact, for those working more than 15 years on rotating night shifts, they had a 38% higher risk of dying from heart disease than those who worked only during the day. Those are pretty staggering and crazy numbers. And from that study, those who worked rotating shifts for the longest period of time were far heavier, had higher blood pressure, and elevated cholesterol in comparison to their day working counterparts. As we can see from all this, there is a very concerning finding that results from not sleeping. So this leads us to a very relevant question as to what happens when we do sleep. Why is sleep so important, right? One can break this down by looking at specific parts of our body. For instance, for our skin, when we sleep, cells create growth factors to repair damage and maintain elasticity so our skin is in better condition. You want to look younger, you need more sleep, right? For our pancreas, without sleep, we become less able to break down sugar from our diet. This can lead to blood sugar dysregulation and other blood sugar complications, such as type 2 diabetes. For our muscles, there is a recovery from injuries like muscle tears. For our brain, the cells shrink, which helps remove debris. These examples are all necessary functions that the body must carry out. One thing that must be noted is that the body is severely adaptable. This means that the person's body and brain can grow accustomed to operating without adequate amounts of sleep. And while this may not produce any noticeable issues in the short term, it is unavoidable that ongoing chronic lack of sleep impacts a person's metabolism and their heart function, thereby increasing the risk for the many conditions we discussed earlier that are linked to chronic poor sleep. Obesity and heart disease can certainly be the result of lack of sleep. And for the people trying to lose weight, if they do not realign their sleeping habits to something more optimal, then they may become particularly difficult to even start losing weight. This really underscores the fact that the body needs to be in balance. And the good news is the pieces of the balance puzzle are known. We talk about food and lifestyle factors, and this is what it's all about. And it's not about doing everything right 100%, right? It's about incorporating the pieces here, and there, making the changes of adding or removing things from your life to start making a new difference.
That's a really important point, Andy, because anything and everything can start to make a difference. And when talking about sleep and all the things that can go wrong when we don't get adequate sleep, we need to step back and ask, what does adequate really mean? And for most adults, it's well accepted that they should aim for between 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. And what we do know as well is that the amount of sleep that a human requires from birth to old age changes. Children and teenagers require more sleep and usually do not seem, on the whole, to have difficulty sleeping. What is interesting to note, however, is that a person's ability to sleep decreases with age, especially when we're thinking about seniors. And this has often been misinterpreted, this inability to sleep soundly or to sleep for extended periods of time, as being an indicator that older adults don't need that much sleep, as much sleep. But researchers indicate that this is not likely accurate. So, when someone does have difficulty sleeping, especially for prolonged periods of time, it's important they look into incorporating ways that may help them. And these fall into a few different categories. So the first deals with the bedroom itself. Make it cool, between 60 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit, or 15 to 23 degrees Celsius. make your room dark to get melatonin. And ensure that it has a comfortable and clean mattress and bedding. And what may be difficult for some people is to turn off all electronics in the room. And another category of helping you to successfully sleep includes things that you can do during the day. For instance, get on a schedule. Your waking and sleeping times should not deviate through the week. And experience both daylight and darkness to reset your body's circadian rhythm, because light influences the body's internal clock. Eat healthy fats versus carbs when you have your last meal of the day. And to exercise during the day, because it boosts the production of serotonin in the brain and it decreases the level of cortisol, the stress hormone, which might keep you up. And while there are things to do during the day, there are also things to not do during the day. And these include do not nap and don't eat before bed. And if you do, ensure that you had your last meal at least 4 hours before sleeping. And as well, you should limit your intake of caffeine and sugary beverages, especially for several hours before going to bed. And finally, there are things to do before or while you're in bed. So there are many techniques that can help bring about relaxation and a reduction of stress. And some of these include practicing some mind-body techniques to calm your body, like deep breathing, meditation, mindfulness, journaling, reading a book or magazine, aromatherapy, listening to music and yoga. Also drink a soothing beverage and visualize something that makes you happy or calm. And once you're in bed, do not look at your clock. This can only increase anxiety if you're having difficulty sleeping.
Those are such amazing things that you talked about. And I think a lot of people really do have problems keeping the electronics from the bedroom. They're reading the last Facebook post or Instagram post or checking emails before bed. And, like Sandra recommends, it really is important to leave the electronics out of your bedroom, right? And that's going to make a dramatic difference in your sleep. That is such an amazing great list. Having a sleepless night is really, really difficult. And it is helpful to know that there are things that we can incorporate into our life to try to make falling asleep, to try to make falling asleep and staying asleep as successful as possible. As we always say, your body can only perform to the standards of what you give it to function, right? Sleep is and can no longer be considered a luxury. And we're certainly aware of what not having enough sleep can do. We really need to reframe sleep as being a necessity. Sorry about that. Tongue twister. A necessity for both our health and for our life in general. So let's look at our top 5 takeaways from today to help make your body less vulnerable to illnesses. And these are, number 1, schedule it into your routine. Sleep and wake up roughly the same time every single day, whether it's on a weekday or a weekend. Number 2, optimal sleep amounts vary by age, with children and teenagers requiring more sleep than adults. And while there are some variations in terms of what adults need, most agree that between 7 and 8 hours a night is necessary. That is the average that we all need. Number 3, think about setting the stage for successful sleep. Ideally, the bedroom should be cool, it should be dark with minimal noise, or even some white noise, some meditation music in the background, with little chance of interruption. Number 4, think of getting yourself ready for bed. Outside of whatever rituals you may have, like showering or brushing your teeth, prepare your mind and body by being as relaxed and as stress-free as possible. And the 5th one, number 5, sleep is a necessity. It isn't just a time to give your body and brain a break. It is a critical biological function that restores and replenishes important body systems. Remember, it makes you young.
Absolutely. We are so happy that you chose to be with us today. And as always, we are very excited to hear from you. So please let us know if you have any questions about today's session, and also let us know what's on your mind, what topics you would like us to talk about. So thank you so much for being here. I'm Sandra.
And I'm Andy.
See you next Friday.